Mel Albin. I'm the host and the founder of the Jazz Confusion
My
Power
name is
Hour.
Dion Parson, and I'm honored to share my passion of music with you, our listening audience, through my cultural heritage.
Things can change for you too. If you want to be brand new, that is absolutely possible.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Jazz Confusion Power Hour. I'm your host, Mel Albin, and I'm the founder of the Power Hour. And the reason I created this show is that people who love the music of jazz and all different forms of jazz and genres and subgenres, jazz crossover, including jazz gospel, jazz rock, jazz blues, jazz R&B, jazz funk, anything that touches on jazz, we have an interest in bringing to you and bringing you the artists that make that music. We want you to get to know the artists so that you not only know their music, but you know who they are and how they go about the daily job of actually producing that music. A lot of us think you just get up on the stage and perform, and it doesn't work that way. It takes years to hone the craft and takes hours and weeks to put music together. So tonight you'll hear the story of another artist who can take you backstage into their mind and daily life. And the Power Hour, I want you to know, broadcasts every week for those of you that are new to the show. And we broadcast on the Source TV Radio Network, WTSN, Washington, D.C. And we broadcast live in streaming 4K. And we're the only station that I know of that broadcasts in Dolby True HD. Source Radio is a nonprofit 501c3 radio station supporting jazz, and we also support Black minority micro businesses to help them build scale to get on the finance industry radar and ultimately create and increase the generational transfer of wealth, assisting community equality and equity. Source depends on listener contributions, the artists who appear on our shows for mutual support, and sponsors to cover our cost of broadcasting. So any contributions are greatly appreciated, and keep in mind, they're always tax deductible. Now, the Power Hour has had over 125 amazing artists, well known and becoming well known, musicians and vocalists that you probably know about. Some of the artists on the Power Hour include Eric Roberson, Mesa, Brian Culbertson, Paul Brown, Raheem Devon, Reagan Whiteside, Alex Harris, Greg Adams, Tom Brown, Costello, Pieces of a Dream, Kamasi Washington, Keiku Matsui, Kim Scott, Sheryl Crow, Billy Ocean, Annie Lennox, Dwele, Costello, Samara Joy, Maria Antoinette, Jay Brown, Blake Aaron, Terry Wollman, Her, Erin Stevenson, Cecily, the late Bobby Caldwell, Jeff Bradshaw, Dion Parson, Eric Burden, Jeff Beck, and many, many more. So I want to give you a kind of an introduction to the range of the types of artists that we've had on the Power Hour. And tonight is no exception. We have an extraordinary artist who's taken an extraordinary journey as an artist and composer and continues to unfold with breathtaking grace, driven by her innate musical talent and unwavering devotion to her craft. A connection with music ignited at a tender age of 5 when her fingers first danced across the piano keys. A prodigious gift became evident as she began composing her own melodies by laying the foundation for a future filled with artistic brilliance. As a kid, she was mesmerized watching bands and orchestras perform with perfect coordination. She couldn't understand how everyone knew what to play and when until she discovered the magic of something called an arranger. Along the way, she studied songwriting, lyric writing, vocal performance. She developed a natural ease with technology, computers, and music production. To this day, she engineers her recordings at her grand piano and does all her own digital waveform editing. She also runs her own label, Little Black Dress Records, and because she loves being hands-on, she loves being part of the whole process. Her road to reaching #1 on the Billboard charts with a title track from her album, Listen to This, included some amazing milestones along the way, breaking attendance records at the Radio City Music Hall, performing all over the world, appearing on TV and in films, and recording the great American songbook favorites at Capitol Records, singing into Frank Sinatra's vintage microphone. Through the contemporary jazz community, that's her home, and that's where she feels most comfortable writing and performing other genres, including spa, holiday, solo piano, and timeless standards. So, with that introduction, please welcome tonight's guest. I'm so glad to have on Lisa Addeo. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Mel. Thank you so much for having me. That was quite an introduction. Wow.
well, I stole most of it from your bio. but I've followed you since 1997, since your very first recording. So I know a lot about you, and I've always wanted to have you on the show. I'm glad that we finally could arrange it. I'm delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Well, let's start off. I like to start off every show with one general question. What's cooking? Tell everybody what's going on in 2025. New music in the works, new releases, upcoming concerts or events. So share a little of that with everybody.
Well, recently I just released my latest single, which is called Lipstick and Moonlight. So that's cooking. And I'm always working on new material. So I have actually another one in the can already. So that's cooking. And, I'm always cooking in the kitchen. That's where I get a lot of my ideas, actually. I'm like, so that's cooking. I mean, I'm continually doing voiceovers for the SiriusXM channel, Seriously Sinatra. So, I'm the female voice of that channel. So I'm constantly doing that. I just wait for production orders to come in, and I sit down and in this room right here where you see me, and I do that. But the most recent, the ink is still not dry on the release, is Lipstick and Moonlight. So I'm just really grateful that 2025 is off to an amazing start. That was after Wet Bar hit #1, which was not that long ago. So it's been a heck of a year so far.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And we are going to play your newest release tonight on the show, which I'm delighted to have also. So everybody will get a chance to hear that.
Great.
It's funny you mentioned the kitchen. You get your ideas. My friend Mesa has Mesa's Kitchen. She does a weekly show from her kitchen, and she sings, and she gets inspiration and ideas for new music all the time.
What a great idea. Maybe I should do that.
Yeah, you should do Lisa's Kitchen.
I got to bring my keyboard in the kitchen, though, or something.
yeah. A grand piano would be a little difficult.
Yeah, it would. I need a bigger kitchen, Mel,
Definitely. I want everybody to know how an artist becomes an artist. So let's start with the origins of your music. Was there music in your household as a child?
There was, but it wasn't professional. I'm 200% Italian. So my mother and father, Frank Sinatra was our Italian hero, our household hero, So wherever we used to go as a family, we would sing together, so that's how I got to know all these great standards. And, it was always playing. Music was always playing in my household. So, they say that Italians like to eat, drink, and sing, not necessarily in that order. So music was always there. And I remember, as a young girl, like dancing to this music that my mom and dad were playing. And it's so funny because my mom had scarves, and I used to tie them around my wrists, and I used to dance and pretend I was, something. So that was kind of funny.
Well, when you mentioned Frank Sinatra, I'm sure there was a lot of Dean Martin too.
Absolutely. Everybody, the Rat Pack, Perry Como.
Yeah.
I mean, just, these beautiful old timers. And and it was crazy because my mother she told me later in life, but she could hear a song on the radio, and sit down and play and sing it at the piano. I'm like, Mom, never told me that. That was, that's definitely a gift. So she would sing melodies back to me to, a lot of the great American songbook standards. And she would like nail all the notes, and she'd hear it like once. I'm like, does it go ba-do-da-yo? She goes, no, it goes ba-do-da-da-yo. I'm like, oh.
Wow.
So yeah, I guess that it was undiscovered, uncultured, talent with her and my dad. He had a nice voice too. So
it's interesting that kind of an ear. I have a Jeff Bradshaw on, who's a wonderful trombonist, jazz trombonist, and Jeff is a producer and arranger and a writer too. Jeff was trained on the trombone by his dad, and his dad told him to learn to play the lyrics on the trombone by ear. So he would focus on the lyrics, and that's how he would play his instrument. So there are people that do that just have that incredible ear.
Well, I studied with Paul T. Smith. He was Ella Fitzgerald's accompanist, and I saw him play at this place in Redondo Beach, and I made my way through the crowd. I said, I have to take with you. And he said, you have to audition. It's a labor of love. I said, great, when? So long story short, he took me as a student, and we would improvise, and he would say, just play it how you would sing it. So that was some direction I got. Yeah. So exactly, making that point, exactly what you just said. So
yeah. Where were you raised for your adolescent and teen years?
South Florida, Miami Beach, and always on the ocean. Always, when things weren't as crowded as they are now. So that's where I was raised. The beautiful tropical environment that was really fun.
Yeah, I'm curious, Lisa. I always believe that your birthplace of origin, if you're raised there, it definitely affects your musical choices and your musical style. Like if you're raised in Biloxi, Mississippi, you're going to listen to different music than if you're raised in New York City. So that's going to affect a lot of the music. Was there anything in the environment in Miami that affected your music that you can think about? Did you go to clubs or? What was it?
Sitting on the beach by myself, looking at the sun shining on the water or the moonlight shining on the water, and listening to the waves and just being quiet within myself, then I would hear melodies, and I hear them all the time. I mean, all the time. So I would just sit there and I'd go, oh yeah. And when I was a kid, it was like, I hear like a really cool groove with like some brilliant sparkling piano over it. And I'm like, how do I do that? And I figured it out eventually, but that's what I would hear in my head all the time. So that's interesting.
So it was more nature that influenced you than the culture of Miami Beach. Okay.
Definitely.
You see, now if I was sitting on the beach, all I would hear would be the waves.
Well, you do, but then I did, but then in the background, there's like something starting to brew and it comes out at you,
I had the great fortune of growing up part with Paul Simon when he lived in Queens in New York. And, when he played with Art at Queens College and did free concerts and things anyway, he would carry a pad with him. And if we were in a restaurant and we're sitting next to the kitchen, he would hear the clanging of dishes and write down, he'd just pick up.
Same here. Like you hear the rhythm of, and it's like,
something that you would not, I don't hear it, but he would hear
it. I love it.
Yeah.
He's an amazing artist. He was a busker in like London when some song of his became really popular, and then they came back and they were like, it was like instant.
Well, The Sound of Silence.
Sound of Silence.
Song. Yeah. That first big song. He's a wonderful songwriter. His lyrics are incredible.
Amazing. He's a poet. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, he is. Well, the reason I asked you, I've always found this specific geographic locale is important in your musical choice and decisions. When you went to public school, did you play piano in the band or orchestra or anything?
I was busy playing tennis and having all my friends. No, I did not. And they wanted me to audition for the chorus or whatever, but none of my friends were in that. So I never did the chorus, but they, I guess they auditioned a lot of people and they realized I could sing, but I wanted to be with my friends,
So you didn't participate directly in music in public school?
No, somebody, I used to play piano all the time and somebody asked me to accompany them for like a school concert, which I did. And, they wanted me to follow the sheet music exactly. And I kind of like making up my own stuff, but it worked well. So,
I don't want to digress too much, but you mentioned you played tennis. I played in the first U.S. Open at Forest Hills.
You did?
You wouldn't believe it from this body today, but yes, I was a professional.
Wow.
Yeah, I was ranked in the East, the ECAC.
No,
so I got to play. I played my way into the first round at Forest Hills. And I played doubles and I lost to Jimmy Connors and his partner.
Well, you know what? If you're going to go down, that's a good guy to lose to, right?
I know this is a digression, but it's a quick, funny story. After the match was over and we lost in doubles, I was playing with Bobby McKinley, Chuck McKinley, who was number one, his younger brother. And we went to the net to congratulate Connors. I forgot his partner. And when I got to the net, he said, "Hey, Mel, are you planning to do this professionally?" And at that point, I knew I wasn't. I said, "Not really." And he said, "Good career choice."
Sounds like something he would say. He kind of
Oh,
had that kind of.
he was funny. He was a funny guy. Anyway, I don't want to digress too much, but um, I want to talk a little bit about after your public school, you went on to college, and did you study music or what did you study? I know.
I
Where
did.
you
I
go?
actually majored in voice. I got a part in a play by happenstance, and I got a part in a play. And people said you should major in voice. I said you can major in voice. Well, I sang opera for 2 years. They taught me how to sing correctly.
Wow.
They taught me, how to stand, how to, use my diaphragm and
Diaphragm. Yeah.
all of that. And it was, and so then when I went to grad school in LA, I was starting to do gigs, but my voice was very like legitimate, is what they called it. So I started taking lessons with Seth Riggs and Roger Love, who were
Oh, I
great.
know Roger Love. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they said, we're going to illegitimize your voice. I'm like, whatever you do, so I did. And then I really kind of got into, certain styles, and I could feel in my throat and in my vocal cords what they were talking about. So, and of course I would, record myself and listen back and, and
When did you go to
can't-
graduate school? What graduate school
the
did you go?
Dick Grove
Oh.
School of Music.
That's a great
And we
place.
had it was and Dick was amazing. I mean, and he was this kind of savant, and I met some amazing people and played with some amazing sidemen there. And we used to have Berkeley teachers go back and forth, because they were like, "Oh, you have that and you have that." And, I remember talking to some Berkeley students, and they were like, "Oh, you approach it like that. We approach it like that." So it was great to we were very far away, Boston and LA, but it was great to kind of, bounce ideas off of each other.
Well, why did you choose Grove? It's a great school. How did that come about?
I was in LA, and
Okay.
and it was convenient. I mean, I had so many gigs in LA. At one point I had like a manager and 3 agents, and I was just
Wow.
going from gig to gig to gig. And I was also doing like television and film during the morning. I'd have like, calls at like 4:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, in costume, ready to go. And, and my gig ended at midnight, and I'm driving to the Warner backlot going, God, I should have just stayed up all night, And
Jeez.
so it was just convenient.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a great story. Did graduate school help you network? I know you're already doing gigs out there, but
No, it really did not.
Okay.
I was there weren't that many professionals in my school.
Hmm.
People were trying to be professional. So no, I mean, when I had gigs where I needed sidemen, yes, I would have I would hire the people that I knew I played with at school. But no, it didn't really. I didn't. Not at all.
Okay. Okay. Well, look, I want people to hear your music. We're talking about its origins and how you got to be who you are. So I want to play the first song of the evening, "Diamond Dress." And you released that about a year ago, and with that was number one on Billboard, wasn't it?
For 2 weeks back to
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I was
Yeah.
very, very excited about. Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
what's the backstory in that song? How did it come about?
It started with a lick, which is not I mean, I usually come up with like a melody first, and I probably had the melody. But I started with this like dun ga da da dun gun gun but dun ga dun gun ka chicka dun ba dun ga da da bun gun gun but dun ga ga ga, and then the melody came around that, and so then we started building it. I recorded it, on just a quick record, and sent it to Blake Aaron, who was wonderful to work with, and he's like, "Oh, this is great," and so he jumped in and added his special sauce, and it kind of came about that way. And then And for the video, I don't know if you've seen the video, Mel,
I
but
have. Yeah.
okay. So one day I woke up and it was like I sat up in bed and went boing. It's like, where is that crystal, the Liberace crystal piano? It was like this 9-foot piano that had like 40,000 Austrian crystals, Swarovski crystals on it. And so I called the director of the Liberace Foundation, who I had met, and I said, "Where's that piano?" He said, "Well, it's here in Vegas." I said, "Great, I'm coming out. I need it for a video." He said, "Well, wait." I said, "No, I'm coming. I'm coming out. Make it. I don't care what you say." And so, so I went out, and it was actually in the Nevada State Museum, and they allowed me to record my video in there, and they actually closed the entire museum so I could get in and have full access. So it was kind of an evolving thing, like all the songs are. They kind of take on a life of their own. So it came about, I think, with that lick starting.
Okay. I love the song. It's a great song. I want everybody to hear it. And I'm just curious again. When you do a concert live, do you try out new songs you haven't recorded yet, or do you
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because it changes with an audience. Definitely. It becomes real, and you get to, it's a different feeling. I'm not sure exactly how to describe that, but it's different when you're in the studio. It's different when you're sitting at your piano, and then you go out and it's like in the room, you can tell like kind of what it's going to do and how I can rewrite it, how I can, and the best songs are not written, they're rewritten. So it gives me a lot of insight, and I try to remember it after I finish that song before I go to the next one, as to what I could change to make it, I guess, more amenable, more digestible, more available.
Yeah, it's funny because, Miles Davis once said the best version of a song hasn't been played yet.
Oh, wow. I love that quote. Is that ever true?
Yeah, isn't it? The best version of the song hasn't been played yet. I love that.
Wow.
Well, let's hear Diamond Dress, and this is by Lisa Addeo. I'm sure everybody will enjoy it.
Thank you.
Well, that was wonderful. Beautiful. We have a bunch of comments.
Oh,
um,
cool.
here are some. Here's the first one. Jack Gold.
Oh, hi,
Lisa, I
Jack.
love the
Thank
music.
you. Oh.
Here's another one. Brad Kistner. Great, great arrangement. I play this often. So
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you, Brad.
what was Tennant? Love your vibe. It's so playful, a free spirit.
Thank you. It is playful, and I have fun doing it.
Charlie Dennison. Who's the horn player?
Tony Guerrero on flugel. He's great, isn't he, Charlie? And Andrew did saxophones. Nick Lane is on trombone. And yeah, those guys were good. Michael Stever is on trumpet, but he does the arranging for me sometimes, which is just a thrill and a joy. So
Wonderful. We have so many more. I can't put them all up. Carlo Menasci, great piano runs.
Thank you, Carlo.
Yep. So you got a lot of fans out there already.
Hey.
Pull that down. We probably will get to more of them later, but you have a vast number of people already commented, which is nice.
I love hearing from everyone. So you guys, thank you so much for chiming in. I just love that. It juices me, these notes and this inspiration. It's like, that's why I do what I do, because I want you guys to love it, to hear it, love it, and make you feel good or uplift you, or that's always been my dream, really. So anyway, I digress.
Yeah. Well, we're off to a good start. You probably have a lot of fans because we have a lot of people already tuned in. We have over 160,000 people plugged in already tonight. So,
wow, awesome.
Yeah. So a lot of people love your music, that's for sure.
How do I look? No, I'm kidding. I should go comb my hair with all these people here.
you look fine. Here, let's. I want to get some more insights into moments in your career that have had a lot of meaning to you. When did you have the aha moment when you knew you could do this professionally?
There's a couple of them, I think. So at grad school, we used to have things called ensembles, and you were in the studio and you wrote your own arrangements, and you had a play down, and so the song that you chose and the instruments you chose, the arrangement that you chose. So and then they'd burn it to a CD and you'd be in your car, you'd play it wherever you wanted to. So I'm in my car one day and I'm driving, and, here comes the piano solo, and I turn it up and I'm like, oh, okay. And then the song was over and I thought I was listening to the radio, and I heard myself start talking about the arrangement and stuff. And I thought, that was me. I pulled over on the side of the road. I went, that didn't sound so bad. Maybe I can do this, And so that's kind of how that was an aha moment. Another one is when I was singing and playing at my, sometimes I record on like my iPhone. And so I'm sitting there playing and I started singing exactly what I was playing. And I thought, I didn't even know I could do that. I can sit at my piano and scat along with the notes I'm playing like George Benson does, but I'm at the piano. So that was like, where'd that come from? So there were a couple little signs along the way that, I would do it. And anytime I decided to, stop gigging and go do something else, I would get like this great offer to do something somewhere. And I'm like, okay. So, I just kind of, resigned myself and went, okay, what do you want me to do now? And,
so I'm sorry. So you're being pulled a little bit, not just pushing yourself, but being pulled into a career.
That's exactly right. And then once I was pulled, then I would push myself, because that's what it takes. It takes everything you have and then some.
Yeah. Yeah. But that recognition really can light a fire,
You're exactly right. It was very inspirational. It's like, because you get this little voice and then you get this feeling like, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to do this, Yeah. So I signed up, lock, stock, and barrel, got in line. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going to do it. I figure out how I'm going to do it as I go along. But yeah, it was kind of that sort of thing.
So correct me if I'm wrong, because you were gigging in California so early on in your career, you always had a source of income.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel so blessed and so lucky to have always made money from my music, to pay my bills and to pay my electric bill and my gas in my car, that whole thing. And, and tips, people would, tip me to do stuff, it wasn't a busker, but, I was in these gigs that, and I would get repeat people coming back, which I just love, I loved that. And they would always come back and want me to play a certain song or whatever. So that was always fun.
Yeah, it's always nice too when you're performing, when people come and ask you to play a song that they've heard before.
Yes.
That's a great feeling that, people know your music that way.
That's a great feeling. One time I was playing this song called Diamond Dress that I was that I had written and recorded. And this guy came up and said, "I know that song." I said, "Really?" I said, "I wrote that song." He goes, "Are you Lisa Addeo?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I have all your CDs." I said, "Well, thank you." He didn't realize that I was playing, and I can't remember what the situation was, but it was a fun aha moment for him,
And that's great. Now, let's talk a little bit about genre. I know that you describe yourself as multi-genre and subgenre, smooth jazz, spa, holiday, solo piano, and standards, but you really do contemporary jazz. Which is your preferred genre or subgenre? What do you really prefer that you feel the closest affinity to?
Well, I feel the closest affinity, I think, to the smooth jazz genre. That feels like home to me. But, Mel, it depends on what mood I'm in. Some of those standards from the Great American Songbook, a lot of the songs that Frank Sinatra sang, they're just romantic and they're beautiful. The melodies are amazing. The lyrics are, beautiful. If you can take a song, I mean, kind of like Misty, it stands alone as a melody, and then it stands alone as a poem too. So, that was a benchmark for me. Otherwise, solo piano, I sit down and, it comes to me very easily to sit and do solo piano. And I have a lot of spa music too that, I mean, I sit down and it just effortlessly kind of pours out of me. And then I go, that wasn't so bad. So, so I'm recording that now. But I mean, you and I were talking about it, and I just get ideas all the time, everywhere. So
Yeah.
I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, if the hits keep coming, it's a good thing.
You know what? You're exactly right. I'm blessed. I'm honored
Yeah.
and humbled, really, from all of that.
Let's talk a little bit about songwriting. Every artist approaches it differently. Some hum a tune. You told me you sit on the beach and music's always coming to you. Some create a lyric. Today, right now, how do you approach a new song? How do you start the process? And are you involved in it end to end?
Definitely involved end to end, from beginning to end, to mastering, to marketing, everything, all of that. I think it's different every time. Sometimes I can I hear a rhythm in my head, and then I hear, or sometimes I'll start with a melody. And, like the other day I was starting on this song, and I just, sat down to kind of work out the piano, and I heard this melody and I start playing it, slow. And I thought, that'd be really cool with like a funky, beat on it. So that's different. If somebody says something to me like, you know, it's a beautiful day outside, I would go, it's a beautiful day outside. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day outside. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. I can write a song about anything anybody says, which is kind of fun. It's to me, it's really fun. So I don't think there's one set way. Words inspire me, beats inspire me, melodies inspire me.
When you have a song that's kind of gelling in your head and you start to lay it out, who's your go-to person? Who do you go to say, "Hey, what do you think about this?"
Nobody.
Really?
Nobody.
Wow.
Because I want to get it to the point where I feel, I mean, when I contact a producer, a co-producer to help me, flesh it out, I want to make sure that I am, I've gotten it to the point where I feel comfortable. That is not complete, but that there's places of kind of completion, and then working on morphing it. So I learned a long time ago, if you ask somebody, hey, what do you think? You're going to have so many opinions. You know, it's like miking up a grand piano. If you ask 30 engineers how to mic a grand piano, you get 30 different answers. So I'd rather it be from me and my soul and who I am as an artist, to instead of introducing other people's opinions, I guess. Does that make sense?
That's interesting because, you know, a lot of the artists I have on the show do have a go-to person who they want to just play it off them and get an idea what they're thinking about it. But, you know, everyone does it differently. And obviously, you know, you're self-contained and you know what you're doing and where you want it to go. So that works great.
Oh, I don't know if I know what I'm doing. I just do it. I wouldn't say that.
Well, you must know what you're doing. You wouldn't be knocking out all these hits. By the way, you mentioned Blake Aaron before. Blake's been on my show, and Blake is now my featured artist this month on the station. So,
very well deserved.
A plug to Blake.
Hi, Blake.
Okay. Yeah. We're talking about musical genres. You mentioned smooth jazz. That's probably how you define yourself. But you know, when you put together, and I listened to a lot of your LPs, and when you put them together, these blends of originals and covers, how do you create not just the song but the LP or an EP? How do you decide which songs to mix together? Do you do it thematically? Do you do it harmonically? You know, is the process the same for each project, or does it change between projects?
Excuse me, I have a little tickle. I think I do. Sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. I do more songs.
Take a drink. Take some water.
Good idea. Like a real drink? This
Yeah,
is water. Agua. I do more songs than I need on the EP or the LP. Then I listen to them. Sorry, I think I have like a little tickle in my throat. So then I listen to them and I ferret out, you know, how they compare to each other. I think it's interesting because some pale by comparison and some kind of rise to the top. So I think I like to have a lot to choose from. And if I like to have a lot to choose from, it just rises to the top. It's kind of like, well, here's that melody. At the time, you think it's, you know, kind of complete and it's going to stand on its own. And sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes it's, you know, the cream rises to the top. And then it becomes my personal taste and whoever I'm, you know, co-producing with. So it becomes my taste more than thematic. And I think way back when they used to do albums, they used to would tell a story. They would put it in a certain order,
right.
And one song would follow another, and it told a story. And now, you know, I'm just compiling stuff to, you know, like Christmas. That's kind of a thing. You know, that stylistically, Mel, is interesting because I have a lot of Christmas songs and I have a lot of Christmas EPs and albums. So that's kind of a vibe. I mean, the last solo Christmas tune I did, holiday, I should say, was really kind of pretty solo, slow piano. You know, there's other ones that I do, you know, some vocals on it, and I do lots of different tracks at the same time and harmonize with myself with my arrangement. There's one song I did a big band arrangement. I sang all the parts. That was freaking hard work, but it was fun. Yeah, it was fun. So that you know, something like that, I kind of sprinkle in sometimes if I feel like the theme is dragging or it's too similar, or I want to put a little spice on the record, you know?
Yeah.
So, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. That brings me to another quick question. How do you know when it's over? How do you know when you've done a song? Because you do it end to end. When do you finally say, I'm letting go of this? How do you know?
It's never done. Number one. Number two, you just have to walk away from it.
Yeah, how do you know when to walk away? I mean, how do you do that?
Oh, timeline. You've got a date that it's got to be done by. Okay. Really, that's a good question. It's like, how do you know when it's never done? So at some point you just have to stop. I mean, I could sit here, I could tweak every song I've done, all these CDs I could tweak everything for hours and days and months. And it's been like that. I mean, Donald Fagen, it took him 10 years to do his last album, I heard. And I'm like, I understand that.
Well, you know, Bruce Springsteen's been known to take one song and spend a year before he'll even, you know, think about releasing it. So, you know, I guess when you're really good, there's always more you could do. You're never satisfied with what you've done. That's what makes you really good.
Well, I don't know about that, but I think it's more about being obsessive. You know?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. You know, if you're not obsessive, you're not going to grow. You know, so I mean, it's
a good point. That's a good point. Mm-hmm.
It's important, that kind of perfectionism. It's never, you know, it's never over till it's over. You know, but
and I think it's over when we die. I guess that's when it's
pretty
over.
Much. Pretty much. You know, but let's play your most recent hit. I love Lipstick and Moonlight.
Thank you. It's brand new.
Yep, it's brand new. Just, you know, hot out of the box. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the backstory on that, and then we'll play it right away.
Well, I sat down at my keyboard to, you know, figure out what I wanted to write, and I started with you know, kind of as a descending seventh in the bass in the left hand, and I kind of liked it, and I went, that's interesting. So then I just started, you know what? I didn't hear the melody so much as I think my fingers went to it, and that kind of defined what I was going to do next.
Okay.
And I thought, well, that's kind of okay, I guess. I don't know. And I sent it to Blake Aaron, and I said, Blake, what do you think? He goes, this song is great. I'm like, Blake, wait, it's like my first pass. He goes, no, it's fine. Like, you know, he loved it like from the get-go. And I'm like, but so, you know, that was something I sent to him because I had the chorus down, and he liked that. So, so that came about like that. And then I started, it's so funny because I love titles of songs. And so I came up with Lipstick and Moonlight, which I thought, there you go, back to sitting on the beach, you know, listening to music, or in my head, that was in my head. And I love the moon coming up over the ocean, whether it's full or a quarter or whatever. And it just felt like that, to me, that's very romantic, you know, watching the moon shimmering on the ocean. And it's kind of nature showing off, you know? So, so I thought it's just kind of romantic, and I like Lipstick and Moonlight, and that just came about. And I mean, it just flew to the end. It was a very quick turnaround, you know? Some songs take longer, and some just, like, you know, it takes as long to write it as it does for you to listen to it.
Do you do all the charting and scoring too?
A lot of it. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, busy. You're busy.
I know.
Okay. Well, let's play it for everybody. Let's play Lipstick and Moonlight, your new current release.
Thank
by
you.
Lisa Addeo. Everybody's going to really enjoy this like I do.
Thank you.
That's great. That's
Isn't
such a
that
great
fun?
song.
It's fun. That was
Super.
Andrew New on saxophone, and I just at the very end, I just have to crank it because he nailed that high note, like unbelievably. So,
Yeah, well, you have some nice comments.
oh,
Um,
good.
oh, this is interesting. Tracy Newman, I love this song. My daughter's trying to play it. She is
Oh,
also hooked on the piano. She's 7.
oh, what's your daughter's name, Tracy? Tell her
I'll
to
have to,
keep going. Tell her to never stop.
definitely. Here's another one. Ben Carter, love the funky bass. It's home.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That was Mel Brown. He's one of my go-to guys.
Okay. Is this the this is the only is this only a single or is it part of an LP?
It's only a single right now. It's going to go on my LP eventually called Playing Out Loud. Playain. Playing Out Loud.
Gotcha. Okay. Another one. Got so many more. Felix de Jesus, great
Thank,
composition.
thank you, Felix. That's wonderful.
You got a lot of people really enjoying your music tonight,
Yay.
as I am, and I always have. So let me,
Thank
let me pull everything back up now.
Okay.
There you go. Get myself reorganized. Okay.
Organization is key, isn't it, Mel?
Oh, definitely, definitely. So here's my next question for you.
Sure.
If you could collaborate with any artist, composer, lyricist, musician, vocalist, arranger, producer from any century, anywhere in the world, who would be number one on your bucket list and why?
God, that's a hard question.
Yep, it's supposed to be.
There's some people that are great arrangers but not good lyricists, and then I'm thinking of lyricists and I mean, arranging was something that I was intrigued by when I was like a little kid, and I'm like, how does everybody know how to play the same note when, or their note when? I mean, I'd love to collaborate with Nelson Riddle.
Oh wow, great choice. Great choice.
Or Miles, or Alan and Marilyn Bergman, who actually sent me a note because I recorded one of their songs at Capitol Studios. And they sent me a note that said, "Dear Lisa, thank you for singing our song so beautifully." I'm like, wow. So Michel Legrand is another one. I mean, I'm going back old time.
Yeah.
There's so many. Brian Culbertson, I'd love to collaborate with him.
Nelson Riddle, who you mentioned, Boston Pops. He once said that Frank Sinatra was one of the only artists with the band, the orchestra would tune their instruments to his voice because he was so precise. And the only person, Riddle said, he ever could do that again with was Linda Ronstadt.
Wow.
That they used to tune their instruments to their voices.
I wonder. I don't think Frank had perfect pitch, but I'm gonna research that.
Yeah, because I mean that's what Nelson Riddle said. There was the only two that they were ever able to tune their instruments to, and they had vocalists appearing with the Boston Pops. So I thought I'd share that with you.
Wow.
Yeah, I have all kinds of cocktail party trivia about music.
I love that. Yeah.
All right, well, those are good choices. I like those choices, especially you have Miles in there too. When you look at your discography over the years, is there any song that stands out the most as a career-defining moment for you? Any song?
Well, I think Listen to This. That was my first number one, my first Billboard
Okay.
number one. And that came about. I sat down to kind of work out at the piano, and it went, ba-do-go to do dow. And I went, oh, that's kind of cool. Ba-do-go to dow. Oh, let's do that again. Ba-do-go to do dow. And then I heard the melody. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. And I was working with Niels producing that. And I remember sending him this, and I said, listen to this. I went, wait, that's a cool title. And so he texts me back or calls me and goes, that's a great title. You could call it that. I said, I know, that's what I said. We're both so excited about it,
Who are you working with on that one?
Niels, the guitarist.
Niels Jipner?
Niels Jipner.
He's been on my show too.
Oh, he's wonderful too.
Yeah, he's terrific.
He's a workhorse too. I mean, I thought
Yeah.
I was working hard, sitting there doing digital waveform editing for several. he sits and like, just he's a workhorse, and I love
Yeah.
it. That's what it
Pacific
takes.
Highway. Pacific Highway is a
Oh,
classic.
yeah,
That's a classic. Well,
classic.
since you mentioned listen to this, let's play it for everybody, and after we play it, you can come back and tell us about it. How's that?
Perfect. Sounds great.
Okay, here's Listen to This by Lisa Addeo.
I
That's
see
great.
that note from George. Wow, I'm listening to this and I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, George.
Sandy
Funky
Johnson,
cool. I
funky cool.
know, Sandy. I don't know. It just happens like that. I don't know. That's funny.
Blanche Rickman. Love your piano work. When will we hear you sing?
I can sing right now. What do you want to hear me sing? I'll sing anything you want me to sing. I don't know. I mean, you can hear me sing. Thank you, Harry.
Love your key
You know,
changes. Well done. Yeah.
yeah, cool. It's go to my website, and which we'll talk about later. Um, I do. It's everything's on my website. I probably think I have like 223 songs. So,
Wow.
and
Wow.
those are the ones that you guys can get. So I have a lot that I'm
Yeah,
working on.
your discography is huge. One of my friends, Mesa has done an album a year for 23 years. That kind of, turning out that level of work, first the quality and consistency, and she's creating a legacy. She's creating a legend.
I feel like that's my legacy. That's what I'm going to leave to the world, which is an honor. And like I said before, I'm just, I'm thrilled and inspired and humbled that people like what I do. I get great joy out of it. And it's kind of like when you love something so much, you want to share it with people who also appreciate it. It's like I always bring it back to food and cooking. It's like when you cook something really special, you want to share it with somebody because you're enjoying and you hope that they enjoy it and like it. So
that's funny. I love to cook, and when I don't have company here, I make something. I take pictures of it and send it to my friends and say, "Wish you were here."
There you go. And they'll like, "I'll be right over." Right?
Too late.
Too late. I already ate it all.
Look, Lisa, we're running out of time, and there's so much more I wanted to talk with you about. So we're definitely going to have you back.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I have one more question, then we'll play the last song of the evening, Saxify. Okay. Knowing what you know now, after this body of work that you put out, what would you tell yourself? What would you like to have told yourself the first day when you hit the stage professionally? What advice would you give to yourself that you wish you knew then?
Trust yourself. Trust whatever you feel like you want to create. Trust that little voice that speaks to you inside when it's quiet. Trust that. Don't doubt yourself. And I'm already following this. Never give up. But I would go, oh, I don't know if I'm a good songwriter. I don't know if I'm a composer. I don't know until I had a couple of those aha moments you were talking about earlier where you go, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm meant to do. So because I didn't have people around me that understood anything I do. And I'm not sure I still do. But, it takes a lot to bring a song to market like myself and my fellow artists do. So I never really trusted myself until I started hearing from people like the notes I'm getting tonight on your show. And I'm like, oh, somebody out there likes it. You have to find your own fans. So that's what I would say. Trust what you feel, trust what you love doing because you're going to be good at it. And others will hopefully gravitate to it. And if they don't, keep going because you're going to find the people that love what you do.
Yeah. I know that you're so involved with music. We've talked about it tonight, end to end. You're involved in post-production too, the mixing and mastering right down to the final product.
And
you don't think you need another pair of ears before it goes out?
Sure, I work with my co-producer or my producer on that. Absolutely. Oh, we bang stuff around all the time, and then we mix, and that takes forever.
Yeah. It's a highly specialized skill.
Yeah. I mean, I remember sitting next to Humberto Catiga, who produced and mixed a lot of Celine Dion stuff. And I couldn't believe that he was actually on my session. And, I hired him to be on my session and I learned a lot from him. And I was trusting myself a lot more then. And I'll never forget this one time. I heard something and I said, I hear something. And I probably had 36, 38 tracks, 40 tracks up. And they're like, I don't hear that. And there were a bunch of people in the studio. I said, let's solo every track. And sure enough, I heard something that wasn't supposed to be there, which is a little goofy and kooky. But, so I heard what Humberto was saying. And Humberto said, I love how you sing and play at the same time. So that was really interesting. And when you hear that from people that kind of know their stuff, you feel a little more confident in what you can do. So I guess part of it would be confident, go forward in faith.
Yeah, it's funny. We're talking about mixing and mastering. Again, I go back to Miles Davis. He had so many wonderful quotes. Miles Davis said, "In the end result, it's not the notes you play; it's the ones you don't play that makes
Absolutely.
it."
I've posted that. I've posted that quote before on my socials. So
yeah, it's a hard thing to figure out. What shouldn't I be playing?
Oh, big time. The spaces. You let the spaces speak.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, look, let's play the last song of the evening. I'm definitely going to have you come back because there's so much more I want to ask you about.
Thank
I want to
you.
play Sassified, and then you can say a few words about it, and we'll wrap up for the evening. How's
Okay.
that?
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, everybody, this is Sassified by Lisa Addeo. Oh, beautiful. I put up a couple of comments.
I saw it.
Yeah.
Sassified by Tom and Dion. Thank you
Yeah.
for those sweet notes. Thank
We
you.
have more, but we really don't have time for it. I want to ask you one, a question that's been on my mind this evening. You've done so much over the years, of your career. What's the next act for Lisa Addeo? What is still out there left undone that's in the back of your mind that is kind of a game changer and bring you to a different place? Is there anything cooking?
Everything. And there's so much I want to do. There's everything, film, TV, TV score, whatever, and more music all the time. I'd love to put out a new spa CD. I have so many ideas. If I didn't have to sleep or eat, I would get a lot more done,
Yeah.
So
breathing interferes with everything.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Well, look, Lisa, this has been a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
I enjoyed, your interview tremendously, and I love your music. I've been following you since I think I mentioned earlier, since your 1997 LP, an ode to Frank Sinatra. So this has been a real honor and a pleasure for me, and I definitely want to have you come back when you have some more music you want to share with everybody.
Okay.
Okay. Why don't you tell everybody how they can become a fan, where they can get your music, and maybe a personal autographed version too?
Sure. So you can go to my website, which is Lisa Addeo, ADDEO, lisaaddeo.com. I know it's a weird spelling, so you can go to lisamusic.com, and that points to my website. I do have some CDs that I can personalize for you. All my downloads are there, and then you can see all the icons for my social media. For Instagram, Facebook, YouTube music. Definitely come follow me everywhere. And then there's actually, you can sign up for my email mailing list. I think we're going to have like a giveaway once a month for like a free CD or something. We're talking about that right now. So, so please come follow me and send some notes and thank you so much for listening. And Mel, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
It's been way too much fun, and I can't believe it's been that we're over time. We could do this for a couple more hours,
Definitely. That's why I want to have you back. Are you going to be you have any performances coming up? Do you want to tell
I have
anybody
some
about?
private performances, like some corporate gigs, big corporate gigs that I'm doing. So unfortunately, I'm working on it.
Well, again, Lisa, it's been a pleasure, and we'll definitely have you back. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend.
You too, Mel. Thank you so much, and thanks everybody for listening and watching.
Okay, bye-bye. Well, that was wonderful, and I got to have Lisa back because we have so much more to discuss and so much more of her music for you to hear. So be sure to tune in next week. We're going to have another wonderful guest for you. She's a vocalist and an excellent vocalist too. It'll be a surprise. So be sure you're here next Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for another edition of the Jazz Confusion Power Hour. So again, have a great evening, and thank you so much. I'm Mel Albin. I'm the host and the founder of the Jazz Confusion Power Hour.
My name is Dion Parson, and I'm honored to share my passion of music with you, our listening audience, through my cultural heritage.
Things can change for you too. If you want to be brand new, that is absolutely possible.